The Israeli military says it has now retaliated after what it called the biggest barrage of rockets and mortars from Gaza in 4 years. Israel says it launched more than 35 airstrikes targeting Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza. Both have claimed responsibility for the attacks on Israel. Our Phil Black joins us now with the latest. So, Phil, the IDF have said that this is Israel retaliating after this massive attack. Talk to us a bit about the scale of this attack and what we know about the retaliation.
Well, the day has been extraordinary in many ways, Bianca. This part of Israel, Gaza, has not experienced something like this for years, not since 2014, the last significant war between Israel and Hamas, the militant group that controls Gaza. It all started early in the morning, around 7 o'clock local time. That's when the Israeli Defense Force said there was an initial barrage of around 30 rockets and mortars fired from Gaza into Israeli territory. Most of them knocked out of the sky by Israel's air defense system. Some of them got through, however, including a mortar round, which Israel says landed in a kindergarten. Fortunately, there were no children there at the time. It was still pretty early in the morning. And then Israel retaliated with those airstrikes you mentioned, 35 into Gaza, hitting targets that they described as terrorist and military facilities. But even after that, the rocket and mortar fire from Gaza into Israeli territory, it continued. And by the end of the day, just a short time ago, really, Israel had said that some 70 projectiles had been fired into Israeli territory. Now, Israel blames Hamas, but also it says that Iran has a hand in this through another militant group, Islamic Jihad, which it says is heavily influenced by Iran and which it says today was firing Iranian weapons. Those two groups, Hamas and Islamic Jihad, they blame Israel. They say they were responding to what they describe as Israeli aggression. So both sides blame each other here. But the key question is what happens next? Can this get bigger? So far, there have been no fatalities reported, but 3 Israeli soldiers were injured. Israel says it has no desire to escalate this, but it has every intention of defending itself. Yeah.
Phil, these attacks come after several weeks of increasingly fraught relations on the Gaza Strip. Can you explain some of the short-term context that's led up to this as well?
So in recent weeks, months, really, what we've seen in Gaza have been regular large-scale protests. That's what the Gazans call them, near the fence that divides Gaza from Israel. Israel has used repeatedly lethal force in stopping some of those protesters. Israel says some of them aren't protesters, that they were terrorists using the cover of the protests to try and carry out attacks, to get through the fence into Israeli territory. Israel says it was defending its border, its sovereignty, its people. There has been enormous tension and violence because of that. There has been great criticism of Israel as well. It's been accused of using disproportionate force in putting down some of those protesters, despite its insistence that it is defending itself justly. Now we have this out of nowhere, and it is kind of unexpected in a way too, because Hamas and Gaza have to some extent received considerable sympathy from those who disapprove of Israel's actions in the way that it's handled these large-scale protests. Now Gaza is once again caught up in very much an old school type conflict here, lobbing rockets and mortars from Gaza into Israeli territory. And as I say, the key question from here is, can it escalate further?